Hello everyone, good day. I am your discussant for today, Joanne Flores, in the subject LED 102 with the course description, teaching and assessment. But before we proceed to our topic, let's have first the learning objectives. So at the end of this lesson, the students will be able to A. Know what is the direct method in different perspectives. B. Learn and identify what are the principles and procedures in the direct method. And C. Assess the historical survey that prompted innovations and new directions in language teaching in the past. So, are you ready, class? So now, let's begin with our topic.
In Gwen's method, language is presented and learned as a sequence. So the direct method of teaching was developed as a response to the grammar translation method. It's so to immerse the learner in the same way as when a first language is learned. So in Goen or Francois Goen, he uses gestures and actions to get across meaning. So, like, let's say, for instance, I walk towards the door. So, it is for him, in order for a child to understand the language, it should be, it should include an action. And Nguyen had been one of the first of the 19th century reformers to attempt to build a methodology around observation of child language learning. And also, other reformers toward the end of the century likewise turned their attention to naturalistic principles of language learning, and for this reason, they are sometimes referred to as advocates of a natural method. So there are a lot of reformers trying to build a methodology just like Gowen, just like Francois Gowen. They tried to build a methodology around observing a child on how the children is going to learn the language. And in fact, at various times throughout the history of language teaching, attempts have been made to make second language learning more like first language learning. So, the meaning of this is that the history of language teaching, as I have said, just like Gowen, um, there are a lot of reformers also attempts to make the second language learning more like first language. Like um, it is like the reformers trying to make the child like himuon nila nga like normal lang siya to for a child to learn the second language, like pareha siya sa ka-normal sa when you are learning your first language. So gusto nila nga ipariha ang second language sa first language in terms of acquiring or learning that specific or particular language. So, in the 16th century, for example, Montaigne described how he was entrusted to a guardian who addressed him exclusively in Latin for the first years of his life, since Montaigne's father wanted his son to speak Latin well. Among those who tried to apply natural principles to language classes in the 19th century was L. Savoie in 1826 to 1907. So among those who tried to apply natural principles to language classes in the 19th century was Lambert Savoie. He is one of the precursors of the direct method in the USA. He's a linguist of French origin and teacher of French as a foreign language. So, unlike Goins uses or used gestures and actions in order for a child to learn a specific language. And in Savoie, His method was based on active and oral interaction in the target language and employing questions as a way of presenting and eliciting language. So the focus of Lambert Savoy's method was an interaction between or a dialogue between teacher and student, or how they are going to learn, or the teacher will use an oral interaction like uh, like an oral recitation, or doing some um, formal assessments in order for a child to learn the language. And Savoy and other believers in the natural method argued that foreign language could be taught without translation or the use of the learner's native tongue if meaning was conveyed directly through demonstration and action. So, not just Savoy, it also the other believers in the natural method or the direct method, they also says that um, we don't need we don't need a translation, like dili nato need na nga kanang gamiton na nga to ang like atong native language just to know what's the meaning of that word. So kay ano kanang it was uh it was just that we are going to be conveyed by or through demonstration and action, like the method of Goen. He he wants to possess that gestures and actions will be a way for the child to learn. So, like the other believers in the natural method, hindi na nato kailangan pa nga magamit pa ato ang naandan niya para lang ma-convey nato kung unsa ato ang gusto ipasabot.
The German scholar F. Franke, who wrote on the psychological principles of direct association between forms and meanings in the target language in 1884. And he also provided a theoretical justification for a monolingual approach to teaching. So according to him, a language could be best taught by using it actively in the classroom rather than using analytical procedures that focus on explanation of grammar rules in classroom teaching. And teachers must encourage direct and spontaneous use of the foreign language in the classroom. So, um, we know that not everyone will focus um, on grammar rules. Just like being a prescriptivist. So there are sometimes or some people used to be a descriptivist. So they are focusing on the meaning of that. They focus on the meaning of that specific word, and it is also an easy way for a child to learn a language if it is practiced, especially in the classroom, like in a conversation from a student to teacher. So if that language is used in in communicating or in oral recitation or a dialogue from teachers to student, so it would be easy for a child or for the children to learn a language. And also, the learners would then be able to induce rules of grammar. And the teacher replaced the textbook in the early stages of learning. And then speaking began with systematic attention to pronunciation.
So noun words could be used to teach new vocabulary using meme, demonstration, and pictures. So now let's proceed to the principles and procedures in the direct method. In practice, it stood for the following principles and procedures. So number one is classroom instruction was conducted exclusively in the target language. So you didn't need to make a flowery or something like um, malibog ang imong estudyante. So in order for them to learn the learn the language directly, so it should be that the instruction is exclusively or para lang yun siya ana nga language kung unsa ang inyong gusto katunan nga language. And number two, only everyday vocabulary and sentences were taught. So ang one of the principles and procedures pod sa in learning in direct method, so ang gina-require daw is katuratong everyday nga vocabulary o kuan. Everyday nga kanang mga words nga ilang natunan o mga sentences ang itudlo. And number three is oral communication skills were built up in a carefully graded progression organized around question and answer exchanges between teachers and students in small intensive classes. So, in order for the child to learn a language, just like I've said earlier, for savoir or Lambert savoir, it is also through the oral communication or having a question and answer or a debate that is to be done by the students, or question and answer or an oral recitation from students from teachers to students. And next is the grammar was taught inductively. So these principles are seen in the following guidelines for teaching oral language, which are still followed in contemporary Berlitz schools. These are: never translate, demonstrate. So dili lang nga magsigira ka og kuan, magsigira ni mga i-translate ang kuan ang word. You should also demonstrate it, like unsa ni siya, unsaon ni siya, like parehaan ng laugh. Di ra siya mayon nga laugh in vernacular term is katawa. Tapos seryoso kay imong naong. So you need to demonstrate it. So especially kung kanang mga or grade or preschool ang imong tudluan. So kailangan nimo i-demonstrate, like kung katawa, magbuhak jud ka. And never explain, act. So in order for a child to easily learn what you are talking about is di lang mo si kuda diha or dili lang ka magsigira og kanang storya diha you should also act it, or pwede sab siya that the students will be the one to act, especially now that we are now learner centered, wherein we focus on the learner. So dili na ta mag-focus sa atoa as a teacher. And never make a speech, ask questions. So, um, in in teaching oral language, so dili lang ka nga kaning ikaw, just like I've said, ikaw ra para magstorya. So you need also to throw a questions to your students, like ano kanang um, like kaning dialogue for our students. You will ask them like ano kanang pareha nang mayon ka nga, okay, so laugh in vernacular term it is, or in vernacular word it means katawa. So and then you will also ask your students like, kamo basin naamoy naamoy mga words that you can use, or you can translate it into vernacular or into your native language, or from native language to the second language that you are learning, or the second language that you are acquiring. Never imitate mistakes. Correct. So it is not just that you will just imitating the mistakes. You should also correct, like especially when a child is a child kanang masayop sila, you should correct them in a very formal way, like correct them nga kanang dili sila to the point nga ma-down or masakitan or ma-disappoint kay mali sila. So dili lang siya nga ipa-translate di mo kintabi sa ilaha, like kanang translate katawa into English, tapos ang ilang pag-translate kay mom, the English of katawa is kanang sad ana dito, and then you know that it is wrong, and kanang imo gyapong i-appreciate ang ilang confidence or ang ilahang koan, but imo sab silang hinay-hinayon og correct. I-correct nimo kung unsa gid ang tama nga word. For instance, like mayon ka nga thank you for your participation langga, but the correct term of the correct translation, or ang katawa jud kung imong i-translate is laugh. So never speak with single words. Use sentences. Lain na sab kayo no ug imong isa-isahon pa ang words. Yan ang imong i-word to word pagyod. Kay unsa mo na pagkasabot sa estudyante. So dapat you will use sentences in order for them to understand what you are talking about. Never speak too much. Make students speak much. Just like I've said earlier, pareha itong never make a speech, ask questions. So dili lang nga ikaw ra permi ang mga storya. Dapat you also let your students to speak up so that it can build their confidence. Never use the book. Use your lesson plan. So before, in a traditional way, sa una, when I'm in high school, so my teacher will use a book in order for them to teach. So malimtan na nila ang ilang lesson plan, like murag wala na sila sa passing. So tagsa magmekos-mekos na lang sila. So mas better gid siya to use lesson plan so that if you are going to discuss or to teach or to enter a class, it is well organized and managed. Di kay magkara-kara pa ka, like unsa ganitong kuan ana dito, and never jump around, follow your plan. So dili lang nga you will just use your lesson plan, pero you also need to follow it. Dili kay napakay activity nga ipabuhat sa imong estudyante, and then mo largo na din ka sa imong discussion without kanang giving them the authority, or kanang a chance to predict, or yes, to predict what you are going to discuss. And also, never go too fast. Keep the pace of the student. So, forget you are following your lesson plan. Diba? In a lesson plan, there is a duration of time. So, na siya time nga ginakuan. So, dili forget na siya time is imo na po din siyang dali-dalion. So, saan mo na pagkasabot sa estudyante. So, you always keep keep the pace of the student. So, dapat is kanang nagid sa ilahan naka-focus. And never speak too slowly. Speak normally. So, dili po siya ingon niya kanang dili ka papaspad, so unya maghinay na po ka. Dapat normal ra siya nga kanang the students will understand what you are trying to convey. And never speak too quickly. Speak naturally. It is already understandable. Never speak too loudly. Speak naturally. And never be impatient. Take it easy. So, especially as the teachers, dili siya dapat maubusan ng pasensya, because it is our rule, it is our one of our rule to have a very long patience. So, if sometimes di na natin makontrol ang atong self, so ma-impatience kita. So, a clue or a tip in order for us to kanang dili ta maubusan ng pasensya, we just need to count 1 to 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 until 20, and mag-inhale, exhale then ka, and then ending ka, take it easy self. So because a rule of a teacher is to to understand the students, especially nga they have different characteristics. To assess you, you can answer this, and you can answer this to your paper, and you can also message me through my Gmail, joanflores@gmail.com, by just trying to express your opinion in this question, in this historical survey. So, number 1, what should the goals of language teaching be? Should a language course try to teach conversational proficiency, reading, translation, or some other skill? And number 2, what is the basic nature of language and how will this affect teaching method? Number 3, what are the principles for the selection of language content in language teaching? Number 4, what principles of organization, sequencing, and presentation best facilitate learning? Number 5, what should the rule of the native language be? And 6, what processes do learners use in mastering a language, and can this be incorporated into a method? And 7, what teaching techniques and activities work best and under what circumstances? Particular methods differ in the way they address these issues. But in order to understand the fundamental nature of methods in language teaching, it is necessary to conceive the notion of method more systematically. So, this is the aim of the next chapter, in which we present a model for the description, analysis, and comparison of methods.
So thank you class for tuning with our discussion for today. I hope that you have learned a lot, and I know that you have learned a lot. So I will leave you this quote by Aldous Huxley. There isn't any formula or method. You learn to love by loving, by paying attention and doing what one thereby discovers has to be done. So stay safe and God bless.